How's it going, guys? I'm Mike Dwyer from the Bunker Recordings and BetterMixes.com, and today we're going to talk about why you probably already have enough plugins and why getting more might not help you. So most of us audio engineers are just obsessed with plugins now. There are so many of them out there, and a lot of them are really, really good, and most of them are pretty affordable. And for me at least, it seems like on an almost daily basis, I'm just bombarded with emails about new plugins that came out and how it's totally revolutionary and it's the best EQ or the best compressor or the best reverb ever, and how it's going to completely change my mixes. And for a long time, I would get super excited whenever I got these emails. I'd download the demo right away, and good chance I was going to buy it. Then I'd use it for a while, but then the next great EQ would come out, and I would buy that one, and I'd be obsessed with that for a little while, and the cycle would continue. And it got to the point where my plugin folder was just like a mile long, and I would spend a ton of time searching through it, looking for the plugin I wanted, or maybe I'd EQ something with a Neve style EQ. Then I'd go, well maybe that would sound better with an API, let me try that. Nope, never mind, sounded better with the Neve, let's go back to that. Or maybe we should try an SSL. But then a couple years ago, I decided to kind of try and experiment on a mix. I decided to approach this mix by only EQing with FabFilter Pro Q3. Or actually, it was probably Pro Q2 at the time. But I just wanted to try it as an experiment. And it ended up being one of the best mixes I had done up to that point. And it wasn't specifically because the FabFilter EQ sounds better than all the other EQs I have. I think what really made the difference was not having to make that decision every time. You know, I like to think of us as having like a creativity gas tank. And at the beginning of the day, we have a full tank. And then every creative decision we make drains it a little bit. So even though it might seem like a super small decision of, do I use the SSL or the API on this track? Multiply that across every track on a mix, and it really starts to drain that gas tank a little bit. And ever since doing that mix, I've continued that trend of primarily only mixing with Pro Q3. I'll use another EQ occasionally, but at least 90-95% of my EQing is done with FabFilter. And what that's done for me is it's made FabFilter just like an extension of my hands practically. You know, every plugin has a learning curve to it, and it takes a while to really get to know that plugin and what it does well and what it doesn't do well. So by almost exclusively using a single EQ, it really helps you get to know that plugin a lot faster and a lot better. So now when I have a problem with a track and I need to EQ it, it's practically just like autopilot. I go straight to FabFilter and make some moves, and within seconds usually, it's sounding pretty good. And again, it doesn't have to be FabFilter. I'm not saying you have to use that plugin. It could be the Waves SSL, that one's really popular, or maybe one of the Slate EQs, or your stock EQ. Nothing wrong with any of them. But when you really get to know that one EQ, or maybe two, maybe you use a Neve for most of your stuff, but then you have something else you use for more surgical stuff. That's cool too. But point is, when you get to know just like a couple of those tools really, really well, it puts less effort in between you and the sound you're looking for. And it makes sense. This is how people mixed for years in the analog days. You know, most people would sit down at a large format console and they would have, 48 channels of SSL EQ in front of them, or 24 channels of Neve EQ or whatever. And that's what they would use for 90-95% of the tracks. And if you've seen videos of some of the big name mixers working on their console, it just seems like they fly. They're just reaching up and twisting knobs and moving super, super fast. And the reason is because they've learned to use that one tool so well. Now, yes, they might have some Pultecs or some APIs or something in the rack that they'll use on certain things. But again, it's that like 90% of it being that one tool. And this isn't just for EQs, it can go for compressors, reverbs, whatever. The point is, when you're doing most of your work with a smaller group of plugins, you really get to know them well, and it just becomes like an extension of your body, like I said earlier, which allows you to work faster, get better results, and save the fuel in your creative gas tank for decisions that really matter. So I encourage you to give this a shot in your next mix, or at least as a starting place. If it's not working on a track, grab something else, but start with that. And again, even though it's not what I use, I think like the SSL channel strip plugins are a perfect example for this because they have a pretty versatile EQ and a really, really good sounding compressor that works on a lot of things all in one plugin. So if you get to know that EQ and that compressor really, really well, I think you'll be amazed by the results you get. But again, it doesn't have to be that one. It could be the FabFilter like I'm doing. It could be McDSP, whatever, doesn't matter. But give it a shot and let me know how it works for you. So I hope you found this trick helpful. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. And head on over to BetterMixes.com to grab a free copy of my Ultimate EQ cheat sheet.